Pasha Paroh, YNS7. Thank you for tuning. It's like 8:16 a.m. out here. I'm still up. I was gonna take a nap and then come bring this to you, but I think I just need to bring this to you, then take a nap, and then bring you like a part 2. We're gonna have to break this up into, I don't know how many parts, but it's gonna be at least 2. All right, maybe more, but I got some goods for you, as usual. Okay, get your popcorn. Well, I guess it's a.m. So get your mimosas. You know, turn this on while you in the kitchen. Turn it up. You know what I'm saying? If you whipping up breakfast, if you eat like that, you know. And we ready to get to it, okay? Because we got a lot to cover. So if you saw the last one, egomaniac, right? And I was showcasing how they actually are self-centeredness, right? That's a good representation of self-centeredness. And we were talking about how like the people that are like mind and then the heart, and they're arguing with each other about who's right and how it's all self-centeredness, it's all egomania. And I'm gonna take it to the next level here. I know I explained it in like the form I know, and now I got the research to back it up. It's kind of case in point, because I know when I call on something, when I summon it, when I invoke it, when I evoke it, you know what I mean? I call it into existence, into my presence, you know? And what we gotta actually consider is, one second, let me get the live so I can answer any questions. So I call it into existence. You know, this is what I'm talking about when I'm in the song "The Atmosphere." You know, check out the atmosphere and see how that rocks. But this is kind of like where this is coming from, even before I could explain it to you with all this scientific, you know, explanation that we ready to go over. I got the CIA documents for you straight up. That's what we ready to review. All right. So, but yeah, the song "Atmosphere," and I was explaining in the last video, egomania, how they're looking inside for everything, and when you spend enough time inside, you'll realize that what you really want is external of yourself. It's outside of yourself, okay? That's why the song is called "Atmosphere." That's why some people are probably saying, hey, you had some typos when you flashed the title a couple times. I'm like, the atmosphere, like literally the atmosphere is coming outside of yourself and going into the atmosphere. So I kind of did that on purpose. I wanted to see who was paying attention. But thanks for those that sent me a link or drop me a com to say that was the case. All right, so let's get into this, and we're gonna review this right now. I'm gonna show you why you need to get down, or get up rather, with the atmosphere. Pasha Paroh. Let's go. Okay, so this right here, all right, is the actual U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, right? Document, approved for release 2003, September 10th. Okay, we're gonna review this whole document because there's really some portions at the end I want to go over with you as well, but I think we're gonna take it in some stages and go from there. So it's the analysis and assessment of what they call the gateway process. All right, it's kind of funny. To Commander Pasha. All right, so look, here's the backstory. Okay, so the document creator says, number one, you tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality, right? As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research. Like, that's always should be the thing, man. Whenever you guys are looking into something, talking about something, you can tell who's done research and who hasn't. You know what I'm saying? You can tell who knows what they talking about and who don't. If you don't know, like I started off the last video, Egomania, if you don't know, just simply say you don't know, okay? Save some people some time. They can listen to what you got to say about your feelings and your emotions and your opinions, and then they can go do some research because they'll know that you don't know. You know what I mean? So if you know, that's another thing. So, all right, let's go. So I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business, initially based on conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me. I had resource to biomedical models developed by this guy's name here, Bentov, to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of human consciousness. Okay, we ready to go in. Like, get your coffee, get your tea, whatever it is, you know. All right, so I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonable lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. You know, and like I said, do your homework. One of the greatest things I learned in high school, because math and science was my shit. That's what I went to school for. Fuck all the other classes, kind of, sort of. When we were doing physics, I had physics in high school, I know. So when we were doing physics, we had to write proofs, and your proof was normally no less than 2 pages long. You would have a documented thing of what you think happened, and you had to go through and do the testing, prove the testing, take your data, to measure the results, redo the test to make sure it came out the same, do that 2 or 3 times, 4 times sometimes, then put all your data together, then write your report, and literally a proof had to be like at least 2 pages in high school. So by the time you get into some of these conversations and you ask people for proof and they give you 1 or 2 words, hey, you know what I'm saying? If you want to believe that without doing your own research, it's on you. But we go in today. YN7, that's what we do. Pasha Paroh, let's go. All right. So I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonable lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, just to let you know what we're going to get into, we're going to cover some popular meditations, techniques, and I'm going to show you how they're limited, and that's part of the issue that y'all having. And then there's a third one that's more robust, and then you got the thing that kind of like combines it all, which is what they're talking about, the Gateway, which when I reviewed this documentation, I think a few of us here, like us, is going to be like, this is what we've been doing all along and we didn't even know it. So when we see people talking about they meditate for 4 hours and all this shit, and we looking at them like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? That's a lot of time. So this is why. We're going to get into all that. We're going to show you how they have limitations that they're not aware of, and how they're really not doing what they think they're doing. They're just like sedating themselves. And then we're going to show you what the true process, or at least where I think people should want to get to, so you can connect with the atmosphere, okay? Per the CIA, because I know when I said it, you know, some people was looking at me sideways, you know what I mean? Because I'm just Pasha, right? But here go the CIA document for you with all the scientific shit, you know what I mean? So let them eat that. Okay, so once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of time and space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. See, y'all still stuck inside. Y'all arguing about the mind. Not y'all, but them. These people, especially the egomaniacs. They so self-centered. They still stuck on the mind, the heart. They arguing about which one's right. And we out here transcending time and space dimensions. You know what I'm saying? That's what we doing. That's why they don't like our vibration. We're going to get to all that. All that's listed right here. We get ready to go over all of it. Stay with me. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. Okay? All right, so bullet point number 2. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation. That's what a lot of people doing. They think they the shit. They still babies. So that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. As the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, that introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicate that at times these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerate movement into the gateway experience. See, it's like you got to have the prerequisites, but don't think because you started kindergarten that you already a senior. You know what I'm saying? And that's what some people are doing. All right. And we're going to help them with this because when you get done watching this, you're going to be able to share it with them, rewatch it with them, because you know how when you rewatch stuff, you learn more what you missed before. So, and everybody's going to build, and we're going to get to this. We're going to ascend, right? We're going to get everybody in the atmosphere with us because we tired of this ground level shit, okay? So, Niels Bohr was the renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, you are not thinking, you are merely being logical. The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left brain linear thinking. So to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic but a touch of right brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete, comfortable grasp of the concepts involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. Okay? We ready to go in. I just wanted to give you this preface so you understand what we get into, what resources they use to get to this context, and we're going to keep going here. So paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference, in the end, I found it necessary to return, at least briefly, to the question of the impact of the gateway experience on common belief systems, okay? So I did so because although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such systems, I felt that it was necessary after having completed the analysis to point out that the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Western or Eastern belief systems, okay? So unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the gateway experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. See, that's that ignorance is bliss shit, okay? Crack that egg open, get them the fuck up out of the first level of consciousness, let them know they don't know what they don't know, and sit these motherfuckers down and tell them they're gonna learn something today with you over breakfast, if that's what you're doing right now. All right, so this study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make it a useful guide for other USISCOM personnel, right, whatever that is, who are required to take the gateway training to work with gateway materials. Okay, so now we're going to get into the shit. All right. What they're talking about here, the gateway experience, brain hemisphere synchronization in perspective. Okay, here's the introduction. All right. Now we're going to run through the hypnosis. We're going to run through the shit everybody else is doing. We're going to run through the next level shit above that. And then we're going to get into the real shit. And we're going to cover some shit on the brain. I got some things pulled out to let you know what they fucking with in you when you don't have control over this shit. All kinds of shit. We're going to run through this. All right. So, introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience, quote unquote, involving the brain, all right, involving brain hemisphere synchronization or Hemisync, the most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics, okay, which underlay operation of related methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. Okay, it is easiest to effectively describe that what the gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques that share some common aspects with the gateway experience, but which nevertheless are different. Okay, in this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outset, which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. All right, so let's get into the hypnosis, right? So, hey, what's up, Ali? So, in hypnosis, like when you hear hypnosis, you got thoughts that come to your mind about what that is and shit. And when I run through this, I want you to know, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this because this is where we're going to jump into some of the brain parts real quick. I just want to let you know what they fucking with, because when you talk about hypnosis, you know, you may think about the person that you go there and they're like this, and you go to sleep and they tell you you're a cat and you start meowing and shit. Okay, cool. But now think about hypnosis as the same thing. Like, we know what we're talking about here on YNet7 a lot lately. Well, really a lot, all this is based on it, but mental health awareness, you know, emotional intelligence, so gaslighting, you know what I mean, projection shit, so all this stuff. So if they can get into your brain and they can start affecting you, you gotta know that that's basically a case of hypnosis. You know what I mean? They may not use a little trinket to have you, you know, focus your eye on and shit, but if they can get through your brain and get it into from your left side to your right side, and you start believing that shit, you're going to start feeling that shit. We're going to go into this right here. All right, so have your normal life in mind when I'm talking about hypnosis, like your commercials, like when you watching TV. That's why they call it programming and shit. All right, we're going to run down. Okay, so according to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and the biomedical engineering models of Itzhak Bentov, okay, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex. All right. So what is the sensory motor cortex? The sensory cortex help you process information that is picked up by your five senses. Okay. The motor cortex deals with your ability to move and all your five senses, all right? So if we go over here, if you want some more information, the sensory cortex can refer informally to the primary somatosensory cortex, or it can be used as a term for the primary and secondary cortices of the different senses. Okay, the visual cortex, right? And if we go down here, let me tell you what that is real quick. It's going to be your vision, your hearing, your smell, your taste, your touch, and then there's also some other stuff that it controls beyond that. It's located in the frontal lobe, all right? So the role of the primary motor cortex is to generate neural impulses that control the execution of movement. So now not only are they fucking with your vision, your sound, your smell, your taste, your touch, also your motor skills and shit, like what you're doing to move around and all that shit, all right? So that's the long story short there. Let's get back to this real quick. All right, so hypnosis is a technique. Again, remember what I'm saying. Think about the people you're talking to, the way they talk to you, the way you feel, how you feel about the commercials, when you smell something, you know, all this shit. Like, it's not just, hey, you're a cat, okay, and bark like a dog and all that shit. All right, so hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure sensors. So you already know what the pleasure sensors are, right? And then the lower cerebral, which is your emotional portions and associated pleasure sensors of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement, okay, of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. So they got to turn off the switch that filters out the shit that you know you don't want so they can bypass it. Now remember that, because that's going to be key when we get into some of this next meditational shit that people think they doing, and they think they doing something, all right? All right, so let's get into it. So the left brain, or the left hemisphere of the brain, is self-cognitive, okay? So when we get into self-cognitive, it's like, what is that, all right? So when you talk about self-cognitive, we're talking about the development and characteristics of the concept self, or the self-concept. Part of what developing in children, they say, as they grow, okay? Then you got the self-complexity and self-awareness, all right? And some of that's pretty cool, because I guess that's why they tell you, go back to being in the, the curiosity you had back when you were younger. So if you look at this in a little deeper real quick, some non-human animals, including chimpanzees, orangutans, and perhaps dolphins, have at least a primitive sense of self, right? And here what they're talking about is that they went and they were able to put a dot right here, red dot, on the forehead of a chimpanzee, and then they put him in a cage with a mirror, right? So the chimpanzee actually knew that there was a dot on him and not the mirror, okay? Skipping ahead a little bit, and they say infants who have similar red dots painted on their forehead recognize themselves in a mirror in the same way the chimps do, and they do this by about 18 months of age, okay? The child's knowledge of self continues to develop as a child grows. By age 2, the infant becomes aware of his or her gender, boy or girl. At 4, self-descriptions are likely to be based on physical features such as one's hair color, and by 6, the child is able to understand basic emotions. Okay, so a lot of people, remember when we talk about some of the stuff, like, I jokingly say, hey, when people are arguing with you, is the world round or flat, they're basing it on what some stranger told them in kindergarten. They don't really know that. They're telling you that the world is round, but they don't really know. You know what I'm saying? They going by what someone told them at 5 years old. So you gotta translate that into what we're looking at today. Even though they look like they adults, a lot of these people are still running around with the mindset of, as you can see here, it's basic as a 6-year-old, right? This is why you get the TV show that ran back in the day called Are You Smarter Than Like a 5th Grader? You see what I'm saying? All right, so self-descriptions are likely to be based on physical features such as one's hair color, and by about age 6, the child is able to understand basic emotions and concepts of traits, being able to make statements such as I am a nice person. And that's not to... What happened was they just stopped there. They felt like they know. You get to a level and you stop instead of keep going, okay? So we're going to keep going here. So by the time they're in grade school, children have learned that they are unique individuals. See what I'm saying? So all the people running around talking about I'm unique, they're at a grade school interpretation of what the fuck's going on with them and the universe and shit, all right? So, and then they think, and they can think about and analyze their own behavior, all right? So they also begin to show awareness of the social situation. You see what I'm saying? Look at what age that is. So look at the way people act around you today. Look at what age the social situation came into play. You see what I'm saying? All right. they understand that other people are looking at and judging them the same way they're looking at and judging others, okay? And again, we're going to spend a little time doing this, and then we're going to go back and we'll be able to go through the rest of the stuff without any interruption. I just wanted to get like these certain areas of the brain down so you can see if you're not in control of your own shit, what you're giving access to others to control about you. And this is why you see it affecting others that way, and this is what'll happen to you if you don't boss up in this level, okay? So part of what is, development and characteristics of the self-concept. I'm only going to go through this section and this section here, and then we can go back, all right? I'll read fast. Don't worry, I've been up since yesterday. So, development and characteristics of the self-concept. Part of what is developing in children as they grow is the fundamental cognitive part of the self known as the self-concept, all right? The self-concept, remember that we were just talking about the egomaniacs, self-centered, okay? They stuck on this level, all right? So the self-concept is a knowledge representation that contains knowledge about us, including our beliefs, about our personality traits, about our physical characteristics, abilities, values, goals, roles, greens, potatoes, hams, you know what I mean? So I feel like this is great. So anyway, hold on, let me get that back for you. The self-concept is a knowledge representation that contains knowledge about us, including our beliefs about our personality traits, physical characteristics, abilities, values, goals, roles, as well as the knowledge that we exist as individuals. All this shit, again, is accessible through hypnosis, okay? Plus your motor skills, plus your emotions from the cerebellum, the lower part, right? All right, all this shit. So throughout childhood and adolescence, the self-concept becomes more abstract and complex and is organized into a variety of different cognitive aspects known as self-schemas, if I say that right. Excuse me. Children have self-schemas about their progress in school. About their progress in school, their appearance, their skills at sports and other activities, and many other aspects. And these self-schemas direct and inform their processing of self-relevant information, all right? So by the time we are adults, our sense of self has grown dramatically. In addition, all right, in addition to possessing a wide variety of self-schemas, we can analyze our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and we can see that other people may have different thoughts than we do. We become aware of our own morality. We plan for the future and consider our potential outcomes of our actions. At times, having a sense of self may seem unpleasant when we are not proud of our appearance, actions, relationships with others, or when we think about and become afraid of the possibility of our own death. All this stuff they throwing at you on TV and radio, right? So on the other hand, the ability to think about the self is very useful. Being aware of our past and able to speculate about the future is adaptive. It allows us to modify our behavior and the basis of our mistakes and plan for future activities, okay? So let's go down here real quick. The self-concept is a rich and complex social representation. In addition to our thoughts about who we are right now, self-concept includes thoughts about our past, our experiences, accomplishments, and failures, and about our future self, our hopes, plans, goals, and possibilities. The self-concept also includes thoughts about our relationships with others. You no doubt have thoughts about your family and close friends that have become part of yourself. Indeed, when you don't see them for a while, right, it says you start to miss them, okay? So that's what that is. Now look at this here. Okay? We know it's a vital organ. We know here it says it makes up around 2% of the human weight, right? And only takes up about 20% of the body's total energy. Okay, so think about that. 20% of your energy is consumed by your mind. All right. So the brain, what I want to get to here is lack of. Well, yeah, let's just start here. The brain, being intricate organ, performs a lot of functions. The two sides of the brain communicate with one another to form all vital bodily processes. Both left and right side of the brain look very much alike, but they do share some differences, especially in processing information. Lack of integration between different components of the brain could result in some forms of impairment. Okay, so the human brain has the ability to recognize itself. It has the ability to learn and adapt to change. Each side of the brain has a distinct function, which affects the person's ability to learn and adapt. So if we look here, the left side of your brain is going to be your analytical thought, detail-oriented perception, order sequencing, rational thought, verbal, cautious planning, math and science, logic, right field vision, right side motor skills. So on your right side, you got your intuitive thought, your holistic perception, random sequencing, emotional thought, nonverbal, adventurous, impulse, creative, writing and art, imagination, left field vision, and left side motor skills. So I want you to get an idea here of the separation, because when they are doing these other techniques, you're only using parts of the brain, not the whole thing. And I like to say, anytime you extract something from the whole, you're dealing with some sort of a drug. And that's what you have going on here. That's why it's a drug situation. Okay, but let's go. So now that we got that out the way, according to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone, psychologist Ronald Stone, and the biomedical engineering models of Itchak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers and lower cerebral, that's your emotional shit, right, portions, and the associated pleasure sensors of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is self-cognitive, which we just went over. So verbal and linear reasoning component of the mind. So it fulfills the function, right? It fulfills the function of screening incoming stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right side of the brain. All right. So the right hemisphere of the brain, which functions as the non-critical, holistic, non-verbal, and pattern-oriented component of the brain, appears to accept what the left hemisphere passes to it without question. All right. So your gatekeeper within yourself is the left side of your brain. If they can bypass the left side of your brain, they can get whatever they want into you, and your right side of the brain is going to absorb it and make it so. Okay? So consequently, if the left hemisphere can be distracted either through boredom or through reduction to a sporadic semi-sleep state, external stimuli to include hypnotic suggestions are allowed to pass unchallenged in the right hemisphere, where they are accepted and acted upon directly. The result may involve an emotional reaction originating in the lower cerebral region, sensory motor responses requiring involvement of the cortex, and so on. Both the sensory and the motor cortexes of the right cerebral portion of the brain contains a sequence of points known as homunculus, right? If I said that right, which corresponds to points in the body. See the exhibit on the next page, which is just this right here. And I won't waste your time with that. It's a little diagram pointing out shit where the brain sends shit to. All right. So stimulation of the corresponding areas on the cortex causes intermediate response in the associated portions of the body. Consequently, induction of the suggestion that the left leg is numb, if it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged and referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction being generated that will induce the feeling of numbness. Similarly, the suggestion that the person is experiencing a general feeling of happiness and well-being would be referred to the appropriate pleasure centers located in the lower cerebral portion or the cortex of the right hemisphere, thereby inducing the suggested feeling of euphoria. Finally, suggestions such as one that informs the hypnotic subject that he enjoys enhanced concentration or powers of memory would be responded to in the right hemisphere by accessing unused information storage capacity normally held in reserve as a result of left hemisphere selection and control process. You see what I'm saying? So this aspect will become significant in the context of the gateway process when attention is given to examining the way that hypnosis may be used to accelerate progress in the early stages of the gateway experience. See, these are the baby stuff. This is the baby entry level shit. Okay. Now it's good for the, to start somewhere. If you want to start somewhere, this is where you start. A couple of us is going to realize we've been doing the other shit for a long time. We didn't realize it. We just couldn't explain it. Here you go how you explain it to people with the scientific shit, okay, that they want to say, since we're not the PhDs. All right, so let me give my review on that. On hypnosis is basically, so I think hypnosis is the way you think about it. It's the takeover. It's the ability to take over your mind. But all of that shit's included. It's your five senses. It's your motor skills. Everything is controlled. Like you're literally running the PlayStation. Okay, so part of like what the body is doing is naturally is a state of hypnosis because we're like in the spirit realm and we're controlling shit with the PlayStation controller and we're getting the feedback. All right. So external sources take control of your brain, and that external source may actually be you. The real you, not this flesh, but the real you. So if you get hijacked, if you get possessed, right? You know what I mean? Shit can go left. So keep that in mind. All right. So this is why I say it's a drug people are addicted to. You can be hijacked by society, friends, family, etc. This is why people remain in toxic relationships or environments for too long. Or for so long. The feelings are masked by the drug, right? Numbed but never cured. All right. Just because you don't feel the pain doesn't mean that it isn't there. And if the pain is actually really still there, it's still doing the damage to the mind, body, and spirit, right? So now you see the danger in listening to the wrong music, for example. Watching the wrong TV shows. We're gonna get into more why in a moment. So the brain is distracted by the beat and the program is inserted. Okay? This is why you need to go ahead and take some time and listen to Pasha Paroh music because, so you can get used to it, the good shit. All right, let's keep going. So Transcendental Meditation. Okay? On the other hand, Transcendental Meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted single-minded concentration. See, single-minded concentration. Again, you're not operating wholly. But here we go. Single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral, right, cortex on the right side of the brain. Still only using one side, okay? So, as a result, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus. Okay? Starting from the toes and on up. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in a book by Lee Sinella, MD, entitled Kundalini, Psychosis, and Transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities which comprise the third and lateral ventricles of the brain. In addition, according to Bentov, the states of bliss, right, described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemisphere may be explained as self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. You see? Now, you guys that know me, been watching for a while, you know that I speak of Anuit Coeptus. The rarest translation of that is a circuit in the sky is complete. This is why I say, when you're still in the flesh, you're still in grade school, you're still in preschool, whatever you're doing down here, you haven't got to the other level yet. Okay? It's a lot to work on here, and then once you get through this, you can go to the atmosphere. That's what I'm telling you. All right? So, circuit with the sky is complete. That's why they got a new Coeptus on the back of the dollar, the all-seeing eye. You see what I'm saying? All right, let's read this again. The states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as a self-stimulation of pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. So that circuit that it's running current through is still internal. The whole circuit is still inside of you. You haven't gone outside of yourself yet. All right. So Bentov also notes that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the body, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini, okay? Bentov states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz, which is cycles per second, for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. So you got people, in other words, you got people that are spending 2 hours to drive up this Kundalini energy, and they don't realize that they're masturbating their brain, okay? And like when I think everybody's masturbated at some point in their life. You get that, you finish, but you don't grow nothing, right? You don't connect with nothing, right? Because that's what you're connecting with the other person, and then if you connect all the way, you produce something, you manifest something. You see, so what they're doing is this self-masturbation of the brain. They're getting that sensation of their climax that they finished, and they feel great, but they've done nothing outside of themselves. They haven't connected beyond themselves. Now, to make matters even more trivial, like to make all that shit even more trivial, you could just pop on your YouTube video that's got 4 to 7 hertz theta waves, and you could get the same sensation while you at work, while you doing work. Like there's no, you know what I'm saying? Just listen to the frequency. Just listen to the hertz. Now, so I ain't gonna say you're wasting. You're doing all that for what? Okay? This is what you're doing it for. You're masturbating your mind. It's that simple. You're feeling good. You have the euphoria, but you haven't connected, and you're not gonna produce from that. All right. This is why I keep saying, when you go inside yourself long enough, you'll realize you got to connect with the atmosphere, because that's where you at. That's where the real you is. That's where everything you trying to get to is. All right. The truth going to hurt people's feelings. I know some of y'all don't pay a lot of money going to these classes for all this shit. And y'all sitting there, you know, doing these chants and doing this and all this shit. All right. But this is the truth. Okay. This is what YN7 do. All right. So look. Now, another thing. Think about this. Think about some of your cars. Right. Think about your car. You could be riding to work, and maybe you got, you know, by the time you tune your exhaust and the motor vibrates at this frequency, because they can get the motor, they can get the cabin tuning down to 100 hertz, and then they can start working on it from there. So you know, being, you know, that's not too far off from 7. Okay, when you're talking about the cabin interior of your car can go from 100 hertz to 4,000. Okay, so on the low end, you can start getting real refinement in the 100 hertz and bring that way down. So maybe you got a car. That's why you feel so good. Part of why you feel so good driving it, because it resonates at a close to a frequency of hertz that now, you know, affects you a certain way. It's not necessarily about the badge or the logo on the car. Okay, maybe you got grandma got whoever got a air conditioner, and when it cut on, or a refrigerator. And when it cut on, it just so happens, the refrigerator just so happens to run at 4 to 7 hertz. You know what I mean? And you wondering why you go over there to the refrigerator all the time and feel so good going into it. All right. So, and then Bentov cites here an example, and he's talking about the repeated riding in a car whose suspension. So he gives you a different explanation. I actually looked it up when I read this, and that's how I got the frequency ranges of the interior of the car. It's between 100. I mean, it's between 100 and 600 normally, but can go all the way up to 4,000 hertz. So I'm looking at it like when and I was looking at the materials and how the materials affect all that shit. And I was gonna add it in here, but I didn't want to make it too long. But I mean, looking at that different material, they got a whole science and textbooks and concepts you can buy, and different materials in the car will help you bring down the hertz. So they can go, the ranges they can do, they got 2 different styles that they use. If you're talking between 100 and 600 hertz, they can use certain techniques to actually bring it down that range even further. And then if it's like 4,000 or so, they can use these other techniques to bring it down from that level. But yeah, so your hertz can actually affect that. So when you're doing the Kundalini, you're basically just masturbating your mind, but you're not connecting to nothing. So you're not going to produce nothing. Just like the difference between actual sexual intercourse with another being, where you connect with them both energetically and physically, and create a circuit there. And then if you connect all the way, you'll produce another being, right? This right here, this type of meditation, you're just masturbating the brain. Okay? Say right here, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by circulation of the current along the sensory cortex. So you're still within yourself. This is why I say, the longer you spend inside yourself, eventually you'll come to the point where you realize what you're looking for inside yourself is not in yourself, it's outside of yourself. This is why I wrote the song Atmosphere, before I even knew all the scientific stuff behind it. Okay, this is what I was trying to say. You got to go into the atmosphere. Everything that you're looking for to connect, to bring in, to manifest, you got to connect with the atmosphere. Anuit Coeptus, the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar. Anuit Coeptus, 3 translations. He favors our mission. He approves of our undertaking. And the rarest one is a circuit with the sky is complete. That's why these are antennas. I know some people call them locks, dreads, all kinds of things. These are antennas. And when you start adding color to shit, you're tuning the frequency. All right? It's okay, let's keep going. Yeah, so Bentov cites as example, repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produces that range of vibration, or being exposed long periods of time of frequencies by air conditioning duct. He also notes that the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous psycho kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system. So like I said, those people that are sitting there meditating for 2 hours, you can throw on some headphones, get you some 4 to 7 hertz, and you can get the same benefit as all of that. Now let's go into biofeedback, okay? So when you get biofeedback, is the third consciousness altering methodology, right? Which will be briefly described as biofeedback. Excuse me. So biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor, and sensory cortices, and assorted pain or pleasure centers. So now you're starting to get into the region of, let's say, technique or expertise where you're using, at least beginning to use both brains, right? Your left and right. So instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as done in hypnosis, or largely bypassing and ignoring it as is done in the Transcendental Meditation, biofeedback teaches the left brain hemisphere to first visualize the desired result and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex, pain or pleasure, or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired result. Those who know will say that this sounds like what they read when they read the Law of Attraction. Okay? Hey, what's up? I see Paroh, if I pronounced that right. If I didn't, excuse me. So what we talking about, for those that just joined, is we're going over the basic, most common forms of meditation, right? Because I'm building off of the video I did yesterday when we was talking about egomania and how that's self-centered and they're all about inside. They're arguing about the mind or the heart. Which one do they need to follow? You know, I follow my heart, I follow my mind. Don't follow your thoughts, quiet the noise. All that shit's wrong, okay? Because it's incomplete, and we're going to show you here. This is a CIA document on what's called the Gateway, all right, to back up the claims that I was saying in the last video. And it's actually basically telling you what's behind my song Atmosphere, you know, all that good stuff. So, and then what we're going to do is I'll get to a point where it starts to showcase how we go outside, prove it with their own research here that they did, and we'll probably have a part 2, and maybe we'll go from there. We'll see what it is. Okay, so that's kind of like what we're doing right now. So we're kind of in the middle. We went through hypnosis. So if you missed that, just, when we get done, go back and review that so you can get the thorough breakdown of hypnosis, because here's where we reviewed all of the different parts of the brain, because under hypnosis, you got access to your sensory organs. I mean, your five senses, your motor skills, everything gets affected by hypnosis. And then, all right, so cool. Let's continue. So, where were we at? Yeah. So instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as as is done in hypnosis, or largely bypassing it and ignoring it as done in Transcendental Meditation, BioFeedBack teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize, then to recognize the feelings with the experience of the successful right hemisphere access to specific lower cerebral cortex, all right, which is your emotions and stuff, pain or pleasure or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired result. So that'll sound like the law of attraction. Okay, so special self-monitoring devices such as the digital thermometer are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right hemisphere into assessing the appropriate areas. So this is the way they conducted the experiment to show this done. Once this is done, the left brain can then repeatedly instruct the right brain to reestablish the pathways involved so as to produce the same external objective measures of success. So in the video on the egomaniac, the chat was asking me a question, and I was trying to explain to him, what I was saying is like, how many times have you had something in your life where you were like, I should do this, right? Or let's just say I should do this. You can change that to I shouldn't do that, or I should go, I shouldn't go, whatever you want. But then you be like, I should do this, and then you don't do that, and then something happens 2 days later, a week later, or whatever. You're like, man, I knew something told me I should have done that. I should listen to myself. So I was telling them what you got to do is in the very beginning of whatever, because I didn't know how to explain it with the science, but I could tell you what I was doing. So I was saying whatever you got to do is go back to that moment and start to try and remember what it felt like, what you were feeling, okay? And then you want to start to try and identify that feeling in your life when you have those moments where you're, asking yourself questions or wondering about what the answer is to this, or what should I do here, or are they really, whatever it is you want to think about. And when you get this, when you start to line up that feeling and get used to saying, okay, this is the feeling, you'll know when you are connected to the truth, the source is feeding you that vibration, all right? So that's what we're talking about here. So once this is done, the left brain can repeatedly instruct the right brain to reestablish the pathways involved so as to produce the same external objective measures of success. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized. We're in the blue section here. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized to such an extent that the left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas in the right brain using a conscious demand mode. For example, if the subject wishes to increase circulation in the left leg in order to speed up healing, he may concentrate with his left brain on achieving that result while carefully monitoring a digital thermometer connected to the left leg. So the way they were doing it in the experiment was they would just hook him up to the thermometer to see it done. Like I said, I remember being back in the day when I used to smoke weed, and I'd be like, I was explaining it to people, and certain people would ask you questions about it, and I'd be like, well, I can channel it, I can move it around like to whatever I want to use it for. If I want to create something, I can put it over here into creativity. If I want to fuck the shit out of this chick, I can put it over there into sex drive. You know what I mean? I can move that shit around. You know what I'm saying? That's how I could explain it. I didn't know that nobody else was doing this, or I ain't gonna say nobody else. I didn't know that this wasn't what everybody does. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing I do. It just was like an enhancer, and I guess that's why they call weed a gateway drug, right? All right. I mean, I know they try to explain it as, oh, it leads to other shit. Yeah, no, other shit like the atmosphere. That's what y'all left out. All right, so when the concentrated effort begins to achieve success, the digital thermometer will register an increase in the temperature of the left leg. At that point, the subject can mentally, left brain, associate the sensations experienced with the result achieved and can begin to emphasize by memory recall the same process to cause its strengthening by affirmation and repetition. All right. So then once you figure that out, you can practice it and keep going. So in this way, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors can apparently be suppressed, and ultimately destroyed. The body's pleasure sensors can be stimulated, and a variety of specific psychological results may be achieved. Okay? So how many times did you get cut in your life or something? You be like, man, or you got a cold, you sniffling, and you done tried everything, and then you finally say to yourself, look, you know what? No matter what, when I wake up tomorrow, I'm gonna be able to breathe, right? Whenever you focus on that shit, you mean it for real, and your body gonna respond to that shit. This is where they start talking about the placebo effect, you know? So is any of these medications really working, or do you just believe they're gonna work so that triggers your mind and body to heal itself, and they just making money off you, right? Okay. You know? Sometimes you just gotta go to sleep for a little while. Like, you like, man, shit, I got this shit ain't healing. I cut myself on the fence, whatever. It ain't healing. Let me take a nap. Let me sleep a little more. And you gotta put some energy into it, some extra energy. All right. So, in addition, biofeedback may be used to greatly accelerate the achievement of deep meditative states, particularly for beginners who have no experience in meditative techniques. All right. What's up, Asaki? If I say that right, excuse me if I didn't. So what happens is this particular way is a great way. It's a catalyst, because like what I was saying earlier, you don't need to sit there for 4 hours meditating. All that's doing is masturbating the brain, and you feel good just like you would if you got your shit off yourself, but you didn't connect with anything, just like if you were to be, you know what I'm saying? So you're not gonna manifest nothing like that. You got the feeling, but you ain't producing nothing because you didn't connect to nothing. Okay, so this way, it's kind of like the reason why it's a catalyst is because once you get this, for those, I know some of you just joined, I hope you caught the beginning of that. If not, play it back. But what we're talking about here in the biofeedback is how, you can do this, and it's like a catalyst. Okay, so now you don't have to sit there for 4 hours. You can do this shit. Once you practice it, you can start you can just do this shit while you live in life. Like, you could be in the middle of work and you can still be focusing on, like, I'm going to be able to breathe, whatever, I'm breathing, and you can do that shit and so you don't need to be sitting there for 4 hours, and then you go get your headphones, like I said, and just turn on the 4 to 7 hertz and get you your vibration, and you'll get that same experience if you did sit there for 4 hours meditating. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all frequency based. So, all right. Now, here's the thing though, and whose progress in that methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external objective affirmation. So here's where we're starting. We done went through the processes of the other ones. We done started with hypnosis, then we went into transcendental meditation. Now we're into the biofeedback, and you see the biofeedback benefit is now you're starting to be able to get into to work towards the out-of-bodiness of it. Okay? So you got the people that have no experience, but the way this reads is, and whose progress in the two different types of people, beginners who have no experience, and those beginners whose progress in that methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external objective affirmation. So display of the subject's brainwave pattern on a cathode ray tube has proven to be a laboratory validated means by which subjects may quickly learn to place themselves in profoundly relaxed states characterized by the sort of quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditations. So if you get the biofeedback thing right, you already like on advanced levels of meditation. And then once you practice this part right, like I said, you can do this in the background of what you got going on in your life. And then, like I said in the egomaniac video I did yesterday, they practicing for an hour. You turn on your concept of infinity and you realize that, hey, shit, I can go in for 2 seconds, but in those 2 seconds is infinity. So I can hop into another dimension, and it might only feel like, I'm explaining it that way, work with me here, but it may only feel like 2 seconds here. Like, and the example I gave in the last video was like when someone asks you a question, and you're like, you know what, boom, and you come back with the answer. It feel like that only took 2 seconds. But where did you go in those 2 seconds? Okay? Now, with infinity, yeah, you got negative infinity, you got positive infinity, and it seems like it's enormous. But you also got infinity between the numbers of 1 and 2. You got 1.000004965. You got 1.4. You know what I'm saying? You got infinity between 1 and 2. So it felt like and looked like it actually might have measured 2 seconds on this level. But wherever you went, you might have been in there somewhere in a motherfucking office in another dimension talking about, I need this report done by the end of the day, damn it. And them motherfuckers in there like, we got you, boss. And they were like, and they were banging out work. And then they came back and handed it to you right before it was time to go. And you were like, that's why I pay you the big, whatever you paid them in that world. And then you came back and it felt like 2 seconds here. And you were like, boom. Oh yeah, it was such and such. You see what I'm saying? So they meditating for 4 hours because they stuck here. They still stuck in the flesh. See, we move differently because we connected with the atmosphere, and the atmosphere goes into, we're going to get there. It goes into time, space. We mentioned it in the beginning up here. What did it say? For those that just joined, time, space, right? Here we go. Explain the character of the times and space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it. Okay? So we're transcending time and space dimension. They still stuck in the flesh. This is why they arguing about, do you follow your heart? Do you follow your brain? Well, you see, and we already learned about the brain. And it talks about the heart. I'm going to show you how it tells you in a little bit that they both work together. This is why you can't be arguing about which one, because you need both of them. And it goes back to what I showed in the egomaniac video yesterday, is that the body is a vessel, just like you have a car, but you not the car. You operate in the car, but you not the car. So this is a vessel. This is like the car. We operate in that shit, just like we got a little PlayStation controller and we sit here playing the game, but this is not who we are. See, we spirit, we energy, we soul, we whatever you want to call it, okay? Whatever you call it. But we the energy, we in the atmosphere. All right. Where we at? Let's get back to this. Okay, so now we getting into the gateway. Now, when they break this down, I know some of y'all gonna be like, yo, this is what I've been doing all along. Yes. And this is how you explain it with some scientific degrees and shit, and a lot of money funding you to spend a lot of time toying in the lab, okay? So, gateway and Hemisync, okay? Now that we briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering or expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives and or methods employed in the gateway experience, we may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, coherence, to the amplitude and frequency of the brain output between the left and right hemispheres, so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere, so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. The participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. Not the perceived authority figures, not the perceived know-it-alls, right? This is why you got people calling you a know-it-all, because they don't understand you tapped in the motherfucking atmosphere. You just, boop, you plugged in the Siri. You know what I'm saying? I got the real Siri. You know what I mean? Not the Apple one. I got the demon Siri. I got the demon person. You know what I'm saying? P-U-R-S-O-N. You know what I mean? They like to go run errands and shit, bring back the truth, find treasures. You know what I'm saying? We tapped in. That's why they fear us. That's why we on a different vibration. Okay? So, what differentiates the gateway experience from the forms of meditation is it uses the Hemisync technique, which is defined as a monograph by Monroe Institute trainer, is that Melissa Jagger, a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. See, the issue before, the biofeedback was the first one that actually used at different times and different strengths both parts of the brain. Your transcendental didn't do that, and your hypnosis didn't do that. Your hypnosis puts what it wants into the left brain like it normal shit, and it's trying to bypass and get to the right brain. But it didn't actually utilize the function of it. It's trying to get around it, because the whole object is to get by the screening system so that they can give you whatever they want you to put into your right brain. So they got to bypass that shit. All right? The Transcendental with the Kundalini didn't use both of them. The biosphere started to use both, okay? But not equally and not at the same time. So now what we got is this is why I refer to us as transducers. Okay? This is why you hear me saying it. Antenna. Not locks, not dreads. These are antenna. I knew it coeptus. Circuit with the sky is complete. We broadcasting and receiving signals, man. And when you get to this level, we doing it through time and space. Okay. Let's keep going. So although Hemisync seems to be rather rare and only of short duration in human consciousness, Melissa Jagger states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain Hemisync with the Institute's basic focus 3 tapes. All right, so she wrote, so let me see what I got here. Yeah, okay. So she wrote, she also notes that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish Hemisync at will, okay? Sustaining it for over 15 minutes. So this is what I'm getting at. A lot of us, we're on this level. We've been doing this our whole life. We didn't notice what they called it. We didn't know we were the top level shit. Not to say we're at, we're at the top level, but that don't mean we're at the top of the level, okay? So, but the other shit, that's the entry level shit, okay? This is why you're looking at them like, I don't completely understand. I don't feel like I need to do that. Go with what you know, because you connected to source. You connected some shit. They still stuck within. They still completing circuits like this, all right? Inside themselves. A new coeptus, a circuit with the sky is complete. We connected to the atmosphere, okay? I'm going to show you that right here. It's right here. We almost done. Okay, so now, also what I want to point out is they said someone with Zen experience, 20 years of Zen experience, you can consistently establish this at will. This is why I'm telling you, when they ask us a question, we can go, and we go off somewhere, come back with the answer, or we at least go back and the people at the office in the other dimension say, we didn't get it done today. And you're like, fuck, that's, you know what? We're going to have to deal with this when I get back. All right? And you come back and be like, you know what? I don't know right now, but let me get back to you on it. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference between us. Now, what it's saying is, for when they just starting out, it's very short bursts. So that little 2 seconds here that we were talking about when they asked you that question, you went away for 2 seconds. That's that short burst. I'm not saying that it might not be a minute for starters. Who knows? But think about it like that. Now, when you practice this, we've been doing this. Like I remember when I was just throwing a number out there, I was telling in the other video, like, yeah, man, we've been doing this. I was where you was at 15 years ago. I was telling them, you know? So you figure you put in 15, 20 years of training without even knowing it. Now you can sustain this for 15 minutes, maybe even 20, maybe 30. Maybe you're an advanced learner. Maybe you're a quick learner. Maybe you're built like that. You're tapped into the energy. You can do this for an hour while you're doing something else. This is why you be hitting that shit, and you can be like, yo, we gonna focus on this, and you can get into that, you know, that's the sex magic and all that shit, like, and be like 2, 3, 4 hours, you know, knocking that shit out. You know what I'm saying? All right, hold on. Let me see here. We got Mia Blonde. Okay, I think she's all right. I think she's calling some people, and then Asaki say children know of this, particularly my youngest. He mentions time and experiences before time. Then it becomes hope to continue to encourage his gifts. Yeah, work on that shit. Practice that shit. You know, play games with each other. You know, put a number in your head and say, hey, can you feel or tell me what I'm thinking? Like what number I'm focused on. You know, exercise that shit. I used to do that shit with people. They thought I was crazy. And then they got scared because I was guessing the numbers. You could say guessing or telling them or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, work on that shit. Develop it. This is where you get into the benefit of actually doing a Google search and seeing what type of games exercise the right brain, what type of games exercise the left brain. You know, this is where you can get into. I remember when I was in the advanced gifted program, we were studying Greek mythology and analogies in 3rd grade, all that shit. And I say that often not often, but you hear me say that on the channel because it was an experience of mine. And I remember every time they would come get us, we had to go to a different school. We leave this school, they pick us up, we go to another school to have the special classes. And what we would do for warm up when we got there is we would do logic problems, logic puzzles, all kinds of those little like puzzles and shit. Word finds. What's the other ones? The word, like one of them you circle the words, whatever that's called, and the other one you write in the word from the description. You know, all that shit. But my favorite thing was the logic problems where you had to put they give you all the information. They give you like 5 little bits of information. You got to figure out who was where and had to. Who killed who, was like, you know, all that stuff. Who ate the pie? What car did they drive when they got there? What time did they arrive? And they give you like 5 statements. So all that shit, you got all these type of little games, puzzle books and stuff that you can get your sons or daughters on and exercise the different sides of their mind. I didn't mean to go like this, but the different. I did mean to go like that when I did it, but I was like, hold on, that look crazy. So, but exercise the different sides of their brains based on the games and activities you got them going on. A quick Google search give you a list of stuff, okay? All right, so then you work on that, and as you start on that, that's probably why we are at the level that we on with this shit, because we did start so young, you know? And then we just grew up naturally, and you got everybody looking at you like, oh, you're great at this, you're good at that, how'd you become so good at this? And you're like, I just do it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to tell you. So, all right, let's go. Let's keep going here. Where we at? Dr. Stewart, a psychiatrist, and a research associate of the Monroe Institute reports that in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on brain waves, we have found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb. Okay, check this shit out. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as single-mindedness. Okay, remember, we want to get the whole thing going. So Dr. Twimlow goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tapes beyond focus 3, there is a gradual increase in brain wave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. It's just like any other muscle. You gotta work that shit out. You know what I mean? Exercise that shit. All right, let's go. We almost done for today. Well, at least for now. I may come back later. So, lamp versus laser, all right? Melissa Jagger uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of Hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp. All right, this is dope. Check this out. Which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over a wide area of rather limited depth. See, when you stuck inside yourself, you ain't even grow that shit. You don't even feel beyond your hairs. You know what I mean? You still stuck inside here. Or you still stuck inside here, arguing about which one right. Right? When you in the atmosphere, we're going to see in a minute, it tell you around the world in 7 times in a second. Literally. They calculated this shit. All right. So, but it takes more brain power. And like we pointed out earlier, the brain uses, they say, 20% of the energy of your whole body. So maybe that's why you don't work out as much as the next person do. And I'm not, maybe that's why you got to work harder to work out. And then once you work out and get that part of your body right, now you can dump more energy into your brain because your body's more energy efficient. So now you become superpower. Like I was talking about with Juan on the previous video. You know what I mean? Once you get the mind, the body, and the spirit all exercised together, man, you superpower. Okay? Because you're super tuned in. All right? So let's go. Okay, so yeah. On the other hand, the human mind under the discipline. See, some people are just simply lacking the discipline because they think they know it all. They don't want to go beyond the level they on or whatever it is for them. Okay, but so on the other hand, the human mind under the discipline of Hemisync, whether you call it Hemisync or not, whatever you want to call it. Just practice the discipline. Acts after the fashion of a laser beam. So they're a light bulb that's got a little glow to it, and it go a little far. But that's even at their full extent. If they stuck in here, they light bulb off. It's still in here, a little dim little thing in the middle. Now, once you get that shit, like the X-Men, you got, you got laser beams shooting out. You're like, hold on, you want to know what? Hold on. Where the fuck you see that? I kind of zoomed into Texas and saw that this, you know what I'm saying? This is where you get the astral projection, all that type of shit. All right, so acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of the laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. This is why you God, little God. This is why they call you son. You see what I'm saying? Like son. Okay? Look at that part again. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. You shining brighter than the sun. This is why you cooking them when the lower vibrations come around you. Remember, they still internal with their shit. They not even radiating yet. That's why I say we radiate. We radiation, right? So what happens? People get radiation poisoning, right? So you radiating, you fucking out there with your shit. They come into your vibe like, man, I can't stand this motherfucker. Why? Because you cooking them. They getting radiation poison every time they come around you because they not on the same level. And it says it right here in the bottom. That's where I'm going to stop at, where it tells you it's about the level. Okay, we almost there. So, Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. So once you master this, the sky's the limit, so to speak. Atmosphere, okay? You can turn all the way the fuck up, for real. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. They still stuck in here, arguing about heart and mind. They in love with the flesh. You tapped into the whole universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of the ordinary physical sensory inputs to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. Basically, it's like you standing right there. That's what they trying to mimic. When you see them talking about they bringing out the new technology at work and they got the little glasses on and they doing all this shit, talking about they talking to you, they can see you in the augmented reality and they on the computer and they touching the air and it's moving shit around and swiping, doing all that. Because we can really do that shit without the tools. All right. Such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols. This hit me hard because when I be explaining to people, I was like, yeah, once you assign the destination, this is where people go wrong from my perspective. Before I could tell them this in a scientific manner, I was like, you gotta see where you want to get to, and then once you commit the body or the body agrees to the destination, as Simon Sinek would say, right? And the body could be you, the body could be your household, the body could be your company, your business, your whole group of people. I'm trying to get it to where it's the state and eventually the nation all be focused on the destination, right? Because once we agree on the destination, when we're moving, just like if we're going down the highway in that car, you'll see the road sign, you'll see the symbol, and it'll stand out to you. This is why numerology hits some people different than it hit other people. Some people like, yeah, why you be looking at the numbers? What they mean? The numbers don't mean shit. But you like, no, it's a sign. See, because you tapped into the universe. They not. They cut off from source. They still in here arguing about they hot. Right? Okay. So, such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic intuition, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and auroral perception. The mechanics by which the mind exercises the consciousness function will be addressed in more detail later in this paper. All right, so let's get through this here. Frequency following response. So to achieve synchronization of the brain hemispheres, the Hemisync technique takes advantage of a phenomenon known as, or at least they call it, frequency following response, FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. This is why you cooking to other people, because whether they realize it or not, there's a part of them that when they come around you, they want to be on the level that you're on. This is what the egomaniac starts to hate you. This is where the gaslighter, the narcissist, starts to talk shit about you. But see, they don't understand what they're feeling. And then, like I said, it starts to cook them. They get hot, and then they get hot at you. You got them hot, for real, right? But they don't know how. They don't know what that is. So what they do is they tell you, "Hey, come down to our level." Now they want you to suffer atrophy. They want you to get weaker and come down because you start shining too bright. You pulsating too much radiation. They need you to cool off. You hot. Stay hot though. Matter of fact, turn up, get hotter. Okay? Let's go. All right, where we at? So following response, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. That's why they're uncomfortable around you, because their brain trying to adapt, but it's taking them out of their comfort zone and they don't like it. So therefore, if the subject which is why it's important to have people of like-mindedness around you as much as possible, like talking about like as much of all the time as you can get, as close to all the time you can get. Otherwise, you're gonna have some sort of magnetic pull, because that's what a relationship is. It's not. I call a relationship any interaction between two bodies, as above, so below. Okay, so there you go. All right. Yeah. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state, but hears some frequencies with approximate brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from normal beta to theta level. Okay, that 4 to 7 hertz, that's theta level. Okay, so since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist. That's key, because as soon as you start telling them how to turn up their energy, they start telling you what they think they know and how you're crazy and all this shit. They consciously resisting that shit. All right. So as the brain arrives to entrain its wave frequency, right, output with the one which the person hears. All right, so basically it's trying to match the signal. So since these brain wave frequencies are outside of the spectrum of sound which can be heard in pure form by the human ear. You see that, Asaki, if you're still there? So since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, and I got my little note here, and I ask myself, and I ask you too, is this the thoughts in your mind? Is this why you hear whole sentences and words? Is this why you can see the visualizations? All right? Because we're broadcasting and we're receiving that signal that we can't interpret with our normal senses, right? So Hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as brain capacity for deducing beat frequencies. This is a dope concept right here. So if the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz, below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency. And I got a note here that says, is this why when you have an argument or a debate, they give you the two different sides of it? And the media likes to do that because they really want you to be here. So they give you the one extreme and this other extreme, because you're going to wind up right where they want you in the middle. So thus, availing itself of the FFR phenomenon and using the technique of beat frequencies, as they call it, the gateway system uses Hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemisphere into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask sound frequency where desirable. So what are they masking in the music you listen to or in the TV you watch? If you watch TV, you see, this is why you gotta be careful. This is why you gotta play Pasha Paroh songs, because they pure, they clean, there ain't nothing additional in there. Shameless plug. All right. And I don't know, like I said, you tap in, you can feel the energies before they come. You see what I mean? Like, if you saw it stop, because I felt the phone go off before it even went off. You know what I'm saying? That's part of why I didn't want. Anyway, so in this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access via intuitive means new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. Now, of course, they selling their tapes to the rest of the CIA, whatever, government people. But basically, if you practice this and develop the discipline and keep practicing, this is what you'll be able to accomplish yourself too. Okay, we got a couple more parts here, and then I'll stop for y'all, and we can pick this up. I'll jump back on probably later today. So, role of resonance. However, the brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why Gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditative states, which brings about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or Transcendental Meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates through the entire body. This is why they don't like the vibe we on, because it's a resonance, okay? So, again, what they're talking about here is if you do this for, all these yoga and Zen and all this shit, practice long enough, whatever that is for the, different people, you'll be able to do this. And we showed you how to biofeedback, boom, you can jump right in, very little time, get huge results, and then you can, it's a very catalytic way to go to this gateway level, which I'm sure some of our Y97 people are on. And this is why we have the issues that we have with other people in some regards. So according to Bentoff, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the Bifurcation Echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second, okay? Bentoff describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks into two to go into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts to travel up the aorta. You see what I'm saying? So that's okay. So you got a rebounding pulse there. That's inner conflict. I'm going to call it that. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce interference pattern. You see what I'm saying? This is why these other methods aren't as effective. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes, or this other discipline, achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. You see the difference? You're going to have one that gives you interference pulses, waves crashing with each other, and you're going to have one that's in total, complete harmony and unison. That's why it's more powerful. That's why it's able to amplify. Okay? So the amplitude of this sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it is operating normally. Okay, so you 3x already right there just by starting this shit. All right, so brain stimulation. Bentov's medical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to the impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself. All right, this is why you can't argue about, do you need the heart more than the brain? You need both of them. All right, via the fluid-filled third and left ventricles located above the brain stem. An electromagnetic pulse then generated, which stimulates the brain to rise to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. You see, this is the frequency I put here as my note: light attracts like. You know, this is why it's radiating outside the body. This is electromagnetic pulse. You're generating an EMP. This is what goes out and grabs the like frequency, the same frequencies. Okay, so just as Dr. Twemlow observed in his research on the effects of Hemisync tapes, also the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layer surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately 5,000 to 10,000 millimeters, right, in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonance behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. So now you tuning up, you turning up, but it takes you less energy to do it. All right, you're more efficient. So in this way, the entire body, based on its own micro motion, functions as a tuned vibrational system, which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionospheric cavity, which itself resonates at 7 to 7.5 hertz of this process Bentov state. So this is where, so when you get tuned in like this, you're connected with the ionosphere, the atmosphere. Earth's ionosphere cavity is a reservoir of continuously generated electrical energy, E field, in both direct current and alternating current realms. The DC electric energy is created by the constant rotation of the Earth's magnetosphere exposed to the solar wind. You see what I'm saying? In the atmosphere. All right. So now check this out. This is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and fields of making up other bodies. This is why you can feel shit when you tune in. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal. All right, we almost there. This is where we're gonna get to right here, and then I'll break for y'all. So consequently, the gateway process is designed to rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system, right? And to significantly lower blood pressure, to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and all other physical organ systems to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. See, now you can focus on some shit what you need to do, instead of just being like, you know, I'm not just going to give you a word and have you sitting there wondering, I wonder what that means. So the resulting resonance sets up a regular repetitive sound wave which propagates in consonance excuse me, with the electrostatic field of Earth. This is why you got the energy you do. And then here we go with number 10, energy entrainment. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium, the specific exercises included in the gateway tapes or your own discipline enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably, by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field into homogeneity with its surrounding environment and promotes movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic medians are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude, so as to entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection, also promotes enhancement of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when he is ready to do so. More will be said about this topic later. It says, in addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly tuned. And this is where you hear, get on my level, or they want you to come down to their level. Okay? Why? Because the body is a vessel, like you see floating back there behind me. We're not the ship. We're the captain of the ship. The song is the atmosphere. Go check it out by Pasha Paroh on YouTube. This was a dope experience. I'm gonna take a nap. It's 10:05. I've been up since yesterday. I wanted to make sure you got this right away though. And then when I get up, I'll come back with part 2, and we'll go through some more of it. Okay? Because it's not even the shit that's deep. Like that's just getting to the surface so you understand. We ready to go there. Why that 7? You know what we do, Pasha Paroh. Thank you for tuning.